from Greater Sandton and beyond. Get ready for the SANDTON Times Hour
with your host,
Alexander.
Even if you're not ready, we're kicking off the SANDTON Times Hour again for another week on Mix 93.8 FM, and as always, available as a podcast on Apple, Google, and Spotify. I'm Alexander Leipner, and boy, is it a hot week. Well, this is edition 89, week 43, and we're halfway through October 2022. And if you want to get in touch with the show, you can email editor@sandtontimes.co.za, or you can also follow us on social media at SANDTON Times. That's on Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, you name it. Pick a platform and give us a follow. You can also visit the website www.sandtontimes.co.za, and you can send through your questions, your comments, your thoughts, your feedback. You're part of this conversation and you're part of the SANDTON Times Hour Nation. If you're listening to the show live, pre-recorded, before, after, however you decide to consume this, you might already be on a road trip on your December holiday listening to this very delayed, or you might be listening to it right now living with this unbelievable heat that we're going through right now. Anyway, thank you for making the time to listen and also to show your support by listening live or by going onto the podcast platforms, hitting like, share, subscribe, and growing our community and making sure our voice is heard all around the world. And we know that you're listening from all around the world because we can see it on the data. And it's also great to have people listening from all parts of South Africa and, of course, from Gauteng. I'm happy to report that all is well in Sandton land. My trusty sidekick, Vincenzo, buongiorno. It's great to have you behind the desk again, doing our sound and making sure we sound good, as always. And if you're listening live on Mix 93.8 FM and you want to use the WhatsApp line, well, it's open and it's available on 084 822 0938. Have I got that right? 084 822 0938. So you can save that on your phone, use it in future, and it's always good to hear from you. Well, Sport for Choice this week, another packed week of events. It's really getting into the end-of-year party season when it comes to media and companies. And, well, before we get into all the parties, PwC revealed its Africa Entertainment and Media Outlook, and it spans sort of 2020 to 2026, if I got the dates sort of roughly right. And it looks at revenue and trends in media. And Vincenzo, let me tell you, this platform right here, SANDTON Times Hour, right place, right time, the whole lot. Internet advertising, right up there. Young audiences or media that talks to young audiences, right up there. Podcasts, right up there. Radio, right up there. Watch this space. As for the rest of it, newspapers, magazines, and TV, it's essentially rearranging the chairs on the Titanic. Let me tell you. Go check out that report. Very interesting. But all you need to know, we're in the right place at the right time, and we're growing. And then this was a great experience. Let me tell you. This weekend, lunch at the Sanctuary Nelson Mandela. Now, this is in Houghton, and this is Nelson Mandela's former residence when he was president. So we're talking about the 90s here. And a lovely house that went through a bit of a bad spot after he'd moved out and it wasn't looked after, and it really became run down. And there's some pictures at the current residence now where you can actually see what it looked like. And they've decided to turn it into a boutique hotel. And it truly is a goosebumps experience. If you haven't done it, if you haven't heard of it, this is something you need to try. And you don't necessarily have to sleep over. You can sleep over, and I'll talk about that briefly just now. But they have a wonderful kitchen, a wonderful dining space and bar. You can book yourself in for lunch or dinner. They even do breakfast as well. And Xolisa Nduyiya, I hope I pronounced that correctly. She cooked for Nelson Mandela for over 20 years. She was his dedicated chef. After he left prison, after he became president, and during his time, and she's still there. She's working in the kitchen. She's right there. She's going like a Boeing. She came out to greet us during lunch. Had a lovely chat with this woman. I mean, she literally lived through Madiba's entire life after he'd been out of prison and cooked for him wherever he went, whenever he went. And she puts together the most incredible dishes and dishes that he ate whilst he was living in this house. So you get to try the menu. They've obviously reinvented some of these dishes, but this is really a treat. and you must go and try the menu. Hopefully she's around. Maybe you get a chance to meet her. She's a lovely, lovely lady, and just an absolute abundance of stories of her time with Madiba. And then there's obviously the residence itself, which has been renewed, restored. They've brought in the most incredible layer upon layer upon layer of stories. Every little bit of that residence has stories, from the bench that he sat on every day when he read his newspaper, and what newspapers he read, and what did he read in the newspapers, and photos of him, photos of special moments in South African history. There's 9 rooms in the hotel, which each mark a decade of his life, so basically 90 plus years. There is a presidential suite, and this is a presidential suite that a president has actually slept in. Unlike a lot of other presidential suites where you sometimes think, well, it's called the presidential suite, but has anyone who's a president actually ever resided in there? So this is a different story. It's beautifully put together, and I can tell you right now, it's not the last time I'm going there. I'm actually going to go back there again. We had one of the team members at the hotel who actually took the time to do a little bit of a guided tour, talk through some of the elements, some of the thoughts that had gone into it. I mean, there's Nelson Mandela's former study or office where he used to work in, which is now a meeting room. Unbelievable. There's almost like a stoop, or I think they called it a kraal or a lapa or area or whatever. They've still got the foundations there. This is where some of the initial Codesa conversations were being had. I mean, this is such a historical place in South African history, and it just takes you back to those days of the early 90s, mid-90s, going into the 2000s. Such a pinnacle moment in South African history. But yeah, it's just, and they call it a sanctuary because they want you to sit there and reflect and think about, where we're going and where have we come. Coming up on this week's episode, for 24 months, he has been burning down houses worth millions in Johannesburg, and this past week he was arrested. We bring you an update on the Johannesburg arsonist. Then Johannesburg's mayor has called for a water tank in each household, and as water cuts continue across the city, we find out about getting connected with a tank. Then next, he's been trending online for his views on the country, the party and power, and now this well-known investor and businessman is making his next move. Stay tuned for this one. And finally, she's been nominated for an Emmy, and we catch up with this South African actress again. All this and more coming up. Your headlines for the week are coming up shortly. Vincenzo, let's get this hour and this week started with something upbeat.
Connect with the SANDTON Times. Email editor@sandtontimes.co.za.
Well, this is the SANDTON Times Hour on Mix 93.8 FM with Ituana and the Sign of the Times remix of that Coldplay classic, Clocks. Time to take a look at your headlines for this week. So the story goes that the NBA has opened a store in Sandton City, and it features an extensive range of official NBA merchandise and memorabilia, and it is the first physical NBA store in Africa. So I suppose that's something worth celebrating right there in Sandton City. Then this is also crazy. Robberies at drive-thrus in Johannesburg. So this brings a whole new meaning to the word takeaway, but Fidelity ADT are warning of a new modus operandi where motorists are being targeted while buying food at drive-thru establishments. So typically, as you get to the front of the queue, armed suspects from the vehicle in front of you get out and attempt to hijack your vehicle. The vehicle behind you blocks in your car when you try and reverse. So how's that? There you are trying to order something from your favorite takeaway, and you're waiting for your burger and chips or chicken or whatever, and suddenly next thing you know, you're sandwiched in between. You become a victim of crime in South Africa as these things go. So be warned. Let's leave it there with the headlines for this week. It's time to catch up on the details around the Joburg arsonist with Andre Snyman, founder and CEO of eBlockwatch, right after the break.
Online, on air,
Anywhere, anytime.
this is the SANDTON Times Hour. You're listening to the SANDTON Times Hour.
As we kick off this hour, we start with a really interesting story and a little bit of background to this next interview. My guest and I, we chatted before this interview talking about the notorious Johannesburg arsonist and how he hadn't been caught, and we'd gone through a whole conversation around, where we're going to find this person, the stuff he'd done, and before we knew it, he'd been arrested. So here we are having a completely different conversation that we originally were planning to have, and I'm thrilled to be joined by Snyman. He's the founder and CEO of eBlockwatch. And Andre, this must be an incredible victory in terms of crime prevention and dealing with somebody who's really caused some incredible damage in Johannesburg North.
It's been quite a journey. 2 years we've been going at it. There's a long slog that's happened, and it's been difficult, but he's been a fascinating character. And so I'm quite fortunate because I picked my crimes. I choose them, and because I'm one man and a fax machine, as I told you before. Like, I've got 100,000 members that feed me information. I'm like the agony aunt of crime, and people give me their crime, and I sort of like think, well, can I sort this one out? Can't I? And this one was a fascinating one. It pitched up about 2 years ago, and then it became quite personal at a stage because my neighbor was attacked. This guy, we had close encounters with this guy. So, it's been fascinating. And the amount of people getting involved, and the media, I can just say one thing. The best crime fighters are the media. The media keep the story going. They create an audience. And the audience, there's no performance without an audience. And I don't do anything. I don't shoot straight. I can't do anything. But by creating a platform, you actually create the enthusiasm for people to do their jobs.
Well, let's talk about this fascinating performance, like you said, that's been going on for 2 years. So there was this guy who was going around for a long time. We didn't know who he was. He's burnt down in the region of 19/22 odd houses in Johannesburg North. He had a neighborhood that he targeted, which I'm going to ask you to touch on briefly just now. It generally happened at 4 o'clock in the morning. He used to have some very interesting antics. He used to eat in the kitchen, cook in the kitchen, then burn down the house. I mean, quite a wild story.
Yeah, so his area, he hangs around the northern suburbs. He targeted very wealthy homes. Because I am like a switchboard, and everybody phones me, and then I listen to them, and those people that I find interesting, I can plug them through to the right guys. So what happened was, about 2 years ago, there was a fire. So we've got all of these people that are at my disposal to a certain extent. Okay, so that's where it starts. So a security guard is driving past the place right up there in Hersov near Wanderers. And he sees his house on fire, and he's an eldest kind of security guard. And he jumps over and he goes and saves the dogs out of the garage. And the rest of the house is total. Anyway, that was a wonderful story. And I put it out there. And of course, it's a dog story, a fire story. It's an intriguing story, and it's a good news story. So it goes viral. So now I'm like in tune with fire, what happened here. And then I actually hear a little bit that there was a guy who started the fire, and I wasn't too sure about it. Time goes past, a couple of months or weeks or something like that. There's a woman that phones me up. She said, and she lives like 1 kilometer from where this fire was. She said, I've been away. We were down in the Lowveld. I got an alarm to say my house was on fire. Got back, my house was total. And eventually they found out that there had been a guy that had been in the house. He tried to get into the house. He actually got into the one bedroom, but the leading doors were locked. He then climbed out from the gym. He took some dumbbells and he smashed the skylight. He came down the skylight and he burnt the place. But he also went downstairs. He drank a little bit, ate a couple of cookies, and did a couple of things. But he spends a lot of time there. Anyway, so he goes. So I think, okay, that's 2. Then I start hearing about another one, and it starts another one and another one. And all of a sudden I say, hang on. Somebody out there, aren't the guys putting these dots together? So I put it out there on Facebook, and I start getting pushback from a couple of interesting people saying, don't say anything, or do this, or don't, whatever. And I find that very strange. From there, Carte Blanche and I start working together on this thing, and we start putting the numbers together. We're stunned by how many houses have actually burnt, because now the message goes out, and virally we get information. My neighbor's house burned down last month or whatever. So we put all these dots together and we see they're within a 5-kilometer radius of Hyde Park Shopping Centre. After all the pushback from certain people saying, don't put it out there, and we don't know why this is happening, that we can't put it out there, then we realize that they're trying to catch the guy. Okay, so because now it's been brought to the attention. Joe Gifford from the Star writes a page in the newspaper, front page in the newspaper. It comes out that the police are saying this is fake news, and we say, now hang on. How can that be that it's fake news? We know so much. Basically, what happened is that they tried to suppress this intelligence that was going out because they wanted to catch the guy. So we thought, well, we don't want to interfere with this. The police are obviously onto it. They're starting to put a team together. Then I'm sitting having lunch with my wife at a shopping center, and I get a phone call from my neighbor, and my neighbor says to me that somebody's been in his house. I then drive up to his place, but I can't get in because it's a panhandle. But he said somebody had been in. They've gone. Anyway, so I wasn't too worried about it. Elderly couple in their 80s. Well, about 2 hours later, not even 2 hours later, let's say an hour and a half later, I drive from where I live now, and I see some smoke coming out of the house. So I can't get in, but I think it's some garden because it's early evening. I think somebody's burning rubbish in the garden, just a thin bit of smoke. I drive off to go and have dinner, and when I'm at dinner, I get a phone call from all my other neighbors. They say, we cannot believe what's happened to the old people. They've been beaten up. Their house is on fire, and this guy, that arsonist, was in there, and he lit the place, locked it, and said, you're going to die. Anyways, he was saved by the neighbors, and they pulled him out of the study through the window. So then we decided, time to get action here, because we said to all the people that phoned us and said, don't put it out there. We said, we're going to, because everybody should know about it, because somebody's going to die. So then we started letting it out. Lo and behold, more and more incidents happened. December came. We came back from December, and there were like 3 houses just behind the Dunkeld shopping center that had burned down. Then another one behind Hyde Park. Anyway, that's how it went. And just got steam. And then Fidelity came in. They put 100,000 Rand reward out there. They gave us the facilities of their helicopters, their fire department. And that was when the fun started, because that's when we had the security companies coming in together, and there was competition to see who could catch this guy. And that is where we wanted to get it to, that we had the law enforcement guys, because obviously we're just a platform and information. So we got the company starting to go for this guy, and there was a massive competition. And I must say, it was very interesting, because the information that I got, I fed through to both security companies that were totally involved in this. One was Fidelity, and the other one was CAP.
Well, the day arrived. I mean, the day of reckoning arrived. Fast forward 2 years of millions of rands of houses burned down, people traumatized, families traumatized. No clue where this guy was, where to find him. I mean, there were a couple of CCTV photos and videos that circulated at one point where we had a bit of an idea of who he was. And then this past week, he gets found walking around Emmarentia. I mean, what a crazy story.
What actually transpired is what they got. There was some information that was fed through to me. I fed the information through. I said, this is the real deal. I said, hang on, this sounds like real stuff. It was a Sunday night. I sent it through to Mr. Bartman. Mr. Bartman, then he said he'll mobilize his special intervention unit. They mobilized the special intervention unit, and the police went out. They went and they staked out in Soweto. They spent the time there. So that's when the ground crew took over, where that was when there was a joint venture where all the security companies and the police and everybody got together, and they sat there and they started monitoring the situation.
So he's in custody now. I mean, he's up for some incredible charges in terms of what he's supposedly and allegedly done. This must be quite a court case, or quite a few charges he's going to be facing. Yeah,
I think he's going to be in trouble. I think that, the cops and this ground crew of the joint venture of the security companies and the police wouldn't have arrested him if they didn't have a lot of facts on it. And they actually came out and said he's the arsonist. So they broke that news. And so I'm damn sure that they don't want to have egg on their face. Not the right guy.
Well, Andre Snyman, founder and CEO of eBlockwatch, I thank you for making the time to chat to us on the SANDTON Times Hour. And it's the bottom of the hour, and it's time for us to take a quick musical break.
Back for more?
The SANDTON Times Hour continues.
You're listening to the SANDTON Times Hour on Mix 93.8 FM or on a podcast, however you choose. And that was Fever featuring Misha by Joachim Pastor. It's a familiar tune with a fresh new interpretation, and I think I like it. Taking you into the second half of the SANDTON Times Hour, my name is Alexander Leipner, and you know how this works. If there's anything that sounded good during the show, but you didn't manage to get all the details, be sure to visit the show notes on www.sandtontimes.co.za for a detailed breakdown of everything discussed on this week's edition. And also be sure to check out the social media accounts at SANDTON Times and feel free to engage. You can send a tweet, a WhatsApp, a DM, a voice note, a postcard, whatever works for you. And you can also use the hashtag SANDTON Times Hour. Now, I've been talking on this show for quite some time about all the plans we have to make to become independent states in our own rights. Everything that's missing right now is just a flagpole in the garden between inverters and water tanks and everything else. So I thought, let's take this conversation further now that the new Johannesburg mayor has called on a water revolution. And he was saying to combat water shortages, a JoJo tank in each and every house. So that was what he said. But to talk about JoJo tanks in a little bit more details, I've gotten somebody on who really understands this business, and that's Sebasti Badenhorst, who's the executive of sales, marketing, and distribution for JoJo. Give us a little bit more background on JoJo tanks. I mean, I don't think anyone has ever been this interested in water tanks until we got to this point in our life where we're suddenly worrying about electricity and everything else. So how far does JoJo tanks date back?
It goes back to about 1984 when Johannesburg made a tank for his pivot irrigation system. And he really pioneered rotor molding in South Africa. So, yeah, it really goes back 40 years.
So Johannesburg made his own tank and decided this was a great idea. Let me give this to other people.
Yes, so he made a tank out of fiberglass initially, but then fiberglass became very expensive. And he sent his daughter to go and study plastic technology at the Pretoria Technikon. And they started experimenting in their farm kitchen with baking plastic in an oven. And that's how he decided to then switch from fiberglass to plastic, because he wanted something that's affordable.
So JoJo is actually an abbreviation of Johannesburg.
Yes, that's where it comes from.
How big is the business now?
We have got 8 factories all around the country. We supply the whole country. So I think we can classify ourselves as a medium-sized business. And we keep on adding product lines to really focus on water solutions and not just tanks. Because a tank is a storage facility, but you need to move the water from one point to another point. And for that, you need a pump. It's also important to filter your water, if you want to drink it and if you want clean water. So we've added the filtration range. So we really are moving the business along to not just focus on storage tanks, but on domestic water solutions.
Wow. Okay. So you've actually looked at the whole value chain and said, here are multiple points at which we can enter and add more value as people as their needs increase, which is quite interesting. And what are people using these tanks for? I mean, is it just to sort of make sure that their garden is sustained, that the lawn stays moist, or are people also integrating these tanks into other water solutions, like you were saying about showering and filtered drinking water and maybe something to flush the toilet?
I think more and more people are looking at what we call a municipal backup system. The tank is connected to the municipal line. It functions as a little reservoir at your house. So it will store, depending on the size of the tank, some tanks is 750 liters, slim lines. Other tanks are up to 5,000 liters. And then people store water. And if there is a water interruption, then you can still have water in your home. So it's plumbed into your house.
Okay.
So I think that is increasing, and we can see that increase by the amount of pumps that we're selling, the amount of filters that we're selling, and we've actually seen a remarkable increase in our filter and pump sales over the last year. And I think it's because more and more people are just not connecting it to a hose pipe to water their garden, but really getting the water into their house.
Now, take us through a basic setup. Like, I haven't got a tank. I don't know where to start. What is sort of the basic elements of getting yourself going with a tank? And by the sounds of things, a pump is essentially part of that. Otherwise, you're not going to get the water out of the tank.
Yeah, think a basic system, you can work with a tank, a tap connected to the tank, and a bucket. Okay, that's sort of the most basic JoJo tank setup. But few people, want the inconvenience of going to fetch water out of a bucket and flashing your toilet and doing your dishes. You can do that, but it is more convenient then to just connect it to a pump to move it from point A to point B. So I would say that that's sort of the next step. And then to plumb it into your house, that it goes, as soon as the water goes off, you won't even notice that the water is off, because the water will run automatically out of the tank through your pump system and through your filter system.
And then you have the option of connecting it to the municipal line, or then re-engineering your downward gutter on your roof to try and get water into the tank when it does rain.
Yeah, or both. You can have an integrated system where you can catch rainwater. If there is no rain, it will feed from the municipal supply.
Okay. And I believe you guys are also launching a mobile app as well, which I think is hot off the press. There's an app now, so you don't have to sort of, climb on a ladder and have a look in the tank and see if there's water in it. You can actually check it on your mobile phone.
Yeah, we have been busy for the last 3 years to develop a digital tank level monitor that comes with the app on your phone so that you can monitor the level of your tank. We're also going to launch a water meter that you can monitor your consumption, and a water detector. So it's 3 little IoT devices that you can use to manage your water at your house.
Well, there you have it. Sebasti Badenhorst, Executive of Sales, Marketing and Distribution at JoJo Tank, touching on that as the Joburg Mayor calls on a water revolution. And it feels like it's already started.
Online, on air,
Anywhere, anytime.
this is the SANDTON Times Hour.
Well, a man who's certainly been making a lot of waves online and offline as well is a gentleman called Rob Hersov. He's an international businessman and investor. You might have caught some of his clips from speeches he's done over the last couple of weeks. Maybe it's in your WhatsApp, maybe it's on YouTube, maybe it's somewhere. I know it's just been circulating all over the place. I don't know if it's because people have resonated with the content, if people have got upset with the content. Either which way, he joins us now on the SANDTON Times Hour, and I'm thrilled to be chatting to Rob again. Rob, good to have you on the SANDTON Times Hour.
What an honor. I was born in Sandton, grew up in Sandton, so here I am.
Wonderful. So I take that as a regular check-in with you in months to come. What have the last couple of weeks been like for you with all the drama and excitement and, the noise on Twitter where dreams go to die? What has it been like for you?
Well, firstly, there's a Twitter account, Rob Hersov. That's a fake account. I'm actually not on. I'm not on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, or Instagram. So that's a fake account. I've had to, about an hour ago, put my own account up. What a pain. And the fake account's got to like 25,000 followers, and it's insane. But what's it been like? It all started a year ago at the first Biz News conference. I was speaking to 100 people, and it went viral, but mad viral. And I just got, death threats and madness, and I was thrown into a maelstrom of madness that I didn't even expect to be thrown into. And since then, when you realize you're like in there, you might as well keep going. So I kept going. But more recently, with the second Biz News speech, followed by SABC, followed by Podcast and Chill with Mac G, it's kind of gone to epic proportions. And I don't read the comments because I get depressed, but my wife does, and she says, well, 90% are super positive. So I'm just leaving it like that.
I hear you, Rob. No, and I mean, you've really started pointing out things that some people might have been speaking about around dinner tables. Some people might agree, some people might not agree, that we either live in a democracy or a new word that I learned this week, which is kakistocracy. Which I thought was an interesting one, which is basically a state or society governed by its least suitable or competent citizens, which I think you're kind of alluding to in these speeches or in these presentations that you've made. Has this cost you personally quite a bit? I mean, either financially or mentally, or just, I know I heard in previous interviews you've received death threats and all kinds of other threats.
Yes, it has. I was raising money for 2 very large transactions. And this is a story to be told later. I don't want to name names at this point. The main institutions pulled out. They said, Rob Hersov's too political, his head's too far above the parapet. And it cost me millions. I've lost friends. People have been some people have been very nasty. But in the main, I've got a huge amount of support. And I never expected to be that guy who walks through the airport and people point and mention, and I know that they're saying that's the guy, and suddenly I'm that guy. It's ridiculous. My wife thinks it's even more ridiculous. But anyway, look, I'm in, and I'm going to keep going. But I think I've criticized the ANC enough, and whenever there have been articles that have been nasty about me, they've never attacked what I've said. They're just attacked the man, which means the message is getting through.
So what is the way forward now? I mean, I know you've put forward proposals, solutions, alternative cabinets, what it could look like if we had to choose, the best and brightest, which we know South Africa has. I mean, we've seen the private sector do some incredible things with some incredible minds on global scales. But in terms of sort of the next steps, in terms of what do you do now? Where to from here?
For the average man and woman in the street, they have an option. Option one is to vote for a political party that will replace the ANC, and hopefully a coalition comes together in 2024, or they give money to charity and help people. But in both cases, you must feel a bit frustrated. I mean, what is going to happen in 2024? So I've decided to do something completely different. There's a technology called blockchain. Many people have heard of it. Very few people understand it. My father included. He went, "You lost me at the word blockchain." But the blockchain is very simply an underlying technology that is a distributed ledger that confirms the buy or sell of something that can never be reversed. There's no corruption. There's full transparency. So what? But the so what is three manifestations. One, crypto. You couldn't have crypto without the blockchain. Two, NFTs, non-fungible tokens. I'm not even going to go into that one. Couldn't have that without the blockchain. And the third, the most interesting, is DAOs, DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations. And my knowledge of those four things is about as deep as what I've told you. But I had this sort of epiphany, but I also read this book called The Nation State, worth reading. And what we're creating with newsouthafrica.org is a community, tribe, nation that doesn't have a territory of South Africans and friends of South Africa who want to do a better job than our government's doing and deliver governance without government. Now, if everyone's as confused as hell, type in newsouthafrica.org, and there's a video that I did, and it should explain things a lot better than I've done now. But it's something pretty radical. And I think it's something very exciting. We've got, 15,000 people signed up in 5 days. Imagine if we got to 80,000 or 800,000 or 8 million. We'd have every taxpayer in South Africa in newsouthafrica.org. Imagine what we could get up to in a positive way.
Well, the blockchain, has already been a potential threat to a lot of industries. We've seen the legal industry facing a situation where contracts and things that are just everyday sort of things like properties being moved or standard contracts being set up, being replaced by blockchain technology. Same with estate agents, same with accountants. So essentially what you're saying is that why not take that one step further and take over the mundane processes or the everyday processes that would be a government situation, take that into the blockchain space, be it issuing ID books or passports or elections, registering people, etc., etc. So what are you hoping to achieve once you hit that critical mass with newsouthafrica.org?
So the beauty about a DAO is there's no CEO, there's no president, there's no leader. Everything's referendum based and community based. So, somebody puts a proposal up. Let's get free Wi-Fi to the people in South Africa that don't have it. And people opine on that and vote on it. And if they vote, what a good idea, it has to get funded. But it's a referendum-based organization. Everybody is equal. Everybody's in charge of governance. It's very, very exciting.
So this is a project that is definitely keeping you in the country. I know you've been in a situation where you've lived overseas, you've lived in other countries, you've gone down that road. You've committed to coming back to South Africa. We spoke to your business partner, I think a year ago, about the airport project down in the Cape Winelands. So you're definitely here to stay and to make the best of what at the moment is a bit of a dark and waterless situation.
I love this country. I lived overseas for 31 years. And I came back with my New Zealand wife for 3 years because Zuma was in charge. I said, the country's got 3 years left. Ramaphosa got elected. My Kiwi wife said, what does that mean? I said, we've just kicked the can down the road. I mean, the crash is coming. This country's finished under the ANC. And now we're not going to leave. My wife said, I don't want to leave this country. I love it. I love it. And I do too. I've been to most countries in the world. You can't beat South Africa. We just got to get these nutcases out of government.
Right. Well, Rob Hersov joins me on the line there, and an interesting new project, newsouthafrica.org. Go check it out on the blockchain. And I'm sure it's not the last time we're going to be chatting to Rob. And I thank him for joining us on the SANDTON Times Hour.
From Greater Sandton to the rest of the world, this is the SANDTON Times Hour.
SANDTON Times Hour on Mix 93.8 FM and available in places where you find epic podcasts. So if you're listening to this delayed, well, you probably found it in one of those places. There was Gampa and Dadoni with Just Smile featuring Miller. And as we get to the final minutes of this week's edition, I'm thrilled to be reconnecting with a very dear face, actress Kim Engelbrecht. We spoke to her last year when Reka hit our screens on satellite television. And I think it was actually the last podcast I'd done before we wrapped up the podcast and then obviously returned this year with a podcast and a radio show. So we've upgraded since then, but she's upgraded as well because she's nominated for an Emmy now for Reka. And Kim, it's great to be reconnecting with you again.
Thank you. And I remember that conversation, very vividly. I had a great time chatting to you.
Did you think a year later you'd be sitting here, us chatting again with an Emmy nomination?
No, not at all. But I remember the interview because I think we were speaking so passionately and we obviously know each other from before. So it was really nice to connect with you and just talk about everything.
Well, it's always great to chat to you, Kim, and it's always nice to see a face that, like you've said, we've known each other for a very long time. I don't even want to give away how many years it's been, but it's good to see someone grow and progress and do some of the things that, as kids we dream about. I mean, when you start off in acting, when you start off in show business, you always dream of getting a Tony or an Emmy or an Oscar, and then your parents say, well, don't put your hopes up too high. Maybe it'll happen, maybe it won't. And yet here we are. And you've got this nomination, and it must feel incredible.
Yeah, it feels good. I think it's just a testament to the hard work and the dedication that's gone into making the show. And it's actually just given me a little bit of time to reflect on my journey as an actor, in this industry as a South African, and just giving myself an opportunity to go in that and realize how valid our dreams are.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. And especially to see South Africa being acknowledged on a world stage. I mean, you're in for best performance by an actress. You're up against some notable international names from other countries as well, which just once again shows that you must have done something really right to be nominated alongside these people. What does this mean for an actress for your career? I mean, even just being nominated for an Emmy.
Yeah, I think it means more than you could ever imagine. I don't think an actor really sets out to win an award when you get involved in this. It's kind of like a bonus and a byproduct of work done and passion shown and just a great collaboration of work. But I think for me as an actress, it's unlike any other job where you can't really tell if somebody's doing well or not. So you can't really tell, okay, is this a good actor or a bad actor? So you're completely dependent on your audience. They kind of let you know if your performance has somehow evoked something in them, so that is your aim as an actor, running into people and going, wow, I enjoyed that performance so much because it reminded me of something, or it moved me in some way. So this is kind of like just the international audience saying that, wow, Reka's moved us in some sort of a way, so that feels really good, and I'm really proud.
I mean, if you haven't watched Reka and you're listening to this right now, I mean, do yourself a favor and go watch it, because I think it'll put it all into context in terms of the role that Kim plays. And we're not going to give you any spoilers during this interview, so feel free to carry on listening. But if you watch Reka, just to give you a little bit of context, it is an intense role that you play. I mean, this isn't one of those roles that are fun and light and, you can kind of get by reading the script and maybe preparing a little bit and you can get through it. This must have taken hours of really sinking your teeth into the script, into the character, and almost becoming that person, which must have been also very draining.
Draining and not draining, exciting, challenging and exciting. I don't think often we are given material where we can sink our teeth into, and I had a lot of time to prepare, so it gave me an opportunity to just like backstroke in the character. I had like a month to sit with the material, and obviously we were shooting for 4 to 5 months on location, so you're not at home, you are in a hotel room, so you get a chance to just work. You start your mornings really early. You got a 5 o'clock pickup, you're on set, you're working, you finish your day at a specific time. By 8 o'clock, you have to be in bed because you have to be there first thing in the morning, because I'm in almost every scene, so I needed to be ready, and not only ready for myself, but ready for the other actors that I'm playing with. So I think the best thing for me was to just completely immerse myself in the experience. I don't know, other actors do it differently. This is how I chose to do it, and you know what I mean?
Kim, what happens between now and November 21st when they make the announcement at the Emmys? What do you do?
I'm just joking. I don't know. I think it's really quite exciting. Yeah, it's quite a time. It's quite a time. I think I'm just gonna let it sink in. Also, I think for me, I think things like this, especially in this time, that we've just been through a pandemic, it's hit us all very hard. Sometimes you just need these sparks of joy. And I think for me, it's just been that spark, that kind of catalyst. Sometimes you kind of miss that. And this is kind of like brought everything back into balance again. Yeah, so it's made me excited, it excites me.
Well, I think, Kim, you've excited all of us in South Africa, and I'm sure we'll all be watching on the 21st of November, whatever that equates to in South African terms, because we're sort of like, 9 hours ahead or 9 hours behind, or we'll figure it out closer to the time when we'll be watching. But actress Kim Engelbrecht nominated for Best Performance by an Actress for her part in Reika at the Emmys, and we wish you all the best, and thank you so much for being on the SANDTON Times.
Wow, thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, that's it for another SANDTON Times Hour on Mix 93.8 FM, and as always, available as a podcast on Apple, Google, and Spotify. If you want to get in touch, you can email editor@sandtontimes.co.za, and we'll do our best to try and get through all those emails, try and respond, or try and act on some of that information. And also connect with us on social media @SANDTON Times, and visit the website, sandtontimes.co.za. Feel free to send through your questions, your comments. As always, all are welcome. And thank you to all our guests who made the time to be on this week's edition. Vincenzo, as always, thank you for your great work and for keeping us sounding smooth. And thank you to the SANDTON Times team, as well as everyone at Mix 93.8 FM for their bit in making the show happen every week. Thank you for listening, and let's connect again next week.
That's it for this week. Thanks for listening to the SANDTON Times Hour. And if you enjoyed it, be sure to share it.